There are stories in the Bible that have remained veiled in mystery for centuries, hidden truths, ancient prophecies, and celestial conflicts that have sparked curiosity and awe. One such story is found in the Book of Enoch, an ancient text that delves deep into the unseen realms, revealing secrets about the fallen angels, the Nephilim, and the cosmic battle between good and evil. Though excluded from the canonical Bible, the Book of Enoch has had a profound influence on biblical thought, and its themes continue to captivate believers and scholars alike. But what if I told you that this ancient text, long considered apocryphal, was brought to life in a film that shocked the world with its daring portrayal of the spiritual world? The Book of Enoch film, which adapted the ancient text for modern audiences, caused a stir unlike any other, drawing attention to the hidden mysteries of this ancient book and the supernatural forces it describes. From the Watchers, the fallen angels who defied God, to the birth of the Nephilim, the film brought these cryptic stories to vivid life. But it wasn't just the special effects or the captivating visuals that left viewers stunned. It was the raw, unflinching exploration of good versus evil, the unveiling of hidden truths, and the powerful revelations of divine judgment and spiritual warfare. In this deep dive, we'll explore the Book of Enoch, unpack the shocking truths revealed in the film, and understand why this ancient text continues to captivate and shock audiences today. Whether you've read the Book of Enoch or are hearing about it for the first time, get ready to uncover what lies behind the scenes of this cosmic battle, a battle that transcends time and echoes in the spiritual realms, leaving us with lessons about good, evil, and the consequences of defying divine authority. Buckle up for a journey through the untold history and the film that brought these powerful truths to life. To fully appreciate the impact of the film The Book of Enoch, we must first understand the significance of the ancient text itself. The Book of Enoch is considered one of the most important apocryphal works, a piece of literature that was widely circulated and influential during the Second Temple period. Its origins date back to the centuries before Christ, and it was traditionally attributed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah. Enoch's story is a curious one, as the Bible itself tells us little about him. Genesis 5, verse 24, mentions that Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. This brief passage alludes to Enoch's unique relationship with God, one of righteousness and closeness, so much so that God took him away, sparing him from death. The Book of Enoch expands upon this brief reference, offering a vivid account of Enoch's journeys through the heavens and his revelations about the future of the world. Divided into 5 sections, the book includes visions of angels, the fall of the Watchers, and prophecies concerning the coming judgment on the wicked. One of the central themes of the book is the story of the Watchers, angels who descended to earth and took human wives, leading to the birth of the Nephilim, a race of giants who corrupted humanity. These angels defied God's order, and their actions ultimately resulted in their punishment. Enoch's role in the book is not just as a witness, but as a mediator who delivers God's judgment upon these fallen angels and warns humanity of the consequences of sin and rebellion. The Book of Enoch was excluded from the canonical Bible during the early church councils, largely because of its apocalyptic and sometimes controversial content. However, it has had a lasting influence on Christian theology, especially in its depictions of the spiritual realm and the role of angels in God's divine plan. References to the Book of Enoch can be found in the New Testament, particularly in the writings of Jude, who quotes directly from it in Jude 1, verse 14 to 15. And Enoch also, the seventh from Adam, prophesied of these, saying, Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints, to execute judgment upon all, and to convince all that are ungodly among them of all their ungodly deeds which they have ungodly committed, and of all their hard speeches which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. For centuries, the Book of Enoch was largely forgotten in the Western Christian tradition, but it remained preserved in various copies, including the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which continues to include it in its canon. In recent decades, the rediscovery of the Book of Enoch and its subsequent translation has brought it back into the spotlight, leading to renewed interest in its contents and its fascinating depictions of the heavenly realms. It is this rediscovery that made the adaptation into film possible, and the shocking revelations within its pages are brought to life in ways that captivate both believers and skeptics alike. The film, The Book of Enoch, sought to capture the essence of the text, portraying the rebellious watchers, the birth of the Nephilim, and Enoch's dramatic encounters with the divine. It focused not only on the supernatural aspects of the story, but also on the deep theological implications of these events, the corruption of the earth, the consequences of sin, and the promise of divine judgment. It was this bold exploration of spiritual themes, combined with stunning visuals and a compelling narrative, that made the film both captivating and controversial. It's this exploration of ancient truths, many of which are hidden in plain sight in the biblical text, that shocked audiences and reintroduced them to a world of mystery and divine revelation. One of the most captivating and chilling aspects of the Book of Enoch is the story of the Watchers, angels who descended to earth and, against God's commands, took human wives. This act of rebellion against God's design set into motion a series of events that would lead to the corruption of the earth and the rise of the Nephilim, the giants who were born of these unions. The Watchers were tasked with watching over humanity, guiding and protecting them, but instead they allowed their lust for human women to overwhelm their divine mission. In Enoch 6, verse 1-2, it is written, "And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the daughters of men, and beget us children." This disobedience created an unimaginable problem. The Nephilim, the offspring of the Watchers and human women, were not just larger in stature, but were mighty and powerful. Their influence over humanity was corrupting, and their actions led to the unraveling of society. These giants, described as men of renown in Genesis 6, verse 4, brought violence, chaos, and destruction wherever they went. In the Book of Enoch, these Nephilim are shown as part of a broader rebellion that not only defiled the earth, but also sought to corrupt the very heart of God's creation. The film, The Book of Enoch, brought these giants to life, showing their overwhelming presence and their terrifying influence on humanity. Their role in the corruption of earth was not just physical, but spiritual as well. The film depicted the Nephilim as not merely giants, but symbols of the unchecked evil that resulted from the Watchers' interference with God's natural order. The idea of these monstrous beings, capable of influencing entire generations and spreading corruption, sent shockwaves through viewers as they saw the chaos unfold on screen. The Nephilim's actions in the Bible are a precursor to the great flood, which God sends to cleanse the earth of their corruption. In Genesis 6, verse 5-7, it says, "And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them." The flood was not just a natural disaster, but a divine judgment against the corruption caused by the Watchers and the Nephilim. In the film, this moment of judgment is depicted powerfully, highlighting the destruction and the overwhelming power of God's wrath.
The Watchers, once beautiful and powerful angels, now find themselves bound and cast into the abyss for their rebellion, while the Nephilim and the world they corrupted are wiped from existence. This image of God's judgment is both terrifying and awe-inspiring, a reminder that no matter how powerful evil may seem, it is always subject to God's authority. The terrifying giants and fallen angels, who once seemed unstoppable, are ultimately defeated by the power of God's will. What the film brings to the surface is the full weight of the Nephilim's legacy. Their existence wasn't just about giant beings walking the earth. It was about the deep corruption they brought to God's creation. They represent the consequences of straying from God's plan, of allowing disobedience to take root in the hearts of those who were meant to follow Him. And yet, through it all, the film emphasizes the promise of redemption. The judgment that followed, while severe, was not the end. It was part of God's divine plan to restore order and holiness to His creation. The story of the Watchers and the Nephilim serves as both a warning and a reminder. No matter the evil or chaos that we face, God's power and justice will ultimately prevail.
The judgment of the fallen angels, the Watchers, is one of the most striking elements in the Book of Enoch and a pivotal moment in the story of mankind's spiritual history. After defying God's command and corrupting the earth with their disobedience, the Watchers were not allowed to escape the consequences of their actions. The severity of their punishment reveals the holiness and justice of God. In Enoch 10, verses 4 through 6, God commands the archangels to bind the Watchers in chains, saying, "Bind them fast for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, till the day of their judgment and of their consummation, till the judgment that is forever and ever is consummated." Their punishment wasn't just a temporary consequence, it was an eternal sentence, one that would seal their fate for generations to come. In the film, The Book of Enoch, this moment is depicted with a sense of cosmic finality. The Watchers, once powerful beings who had lived in the heavenly realms, are now bound in darkness, awaiting their eternal judgment. This scene serves as a visual representation of the gravity of their sin and the certainty of their fate. Their rebellion was not a small misstep, but a catastrophic act that defied God's natural order and purpose. They sought to interfere with creation itself, corrupting humanity and bringing chaos to the earth. And in the face of their defiance, God's justice was swift and unyielding. The Watcher's punishment is not just a personal judgment, but a cosmic one, affecting the entire spiritual realm. The fall of these angels and their binding serves as a reminder that God's authority extends beyond the earthly realm. No being, whether angelic or human, is beyond His reach of judgment. The archangels Michael, Raphael, and others play significant roles in executing God's judgment, emphasizing the hierarchy of heavenly authority and the power that God has entrusted to His servants. In the film, the archangels are shown as mighty warriors of divine justice, carrying out God's will with precision and strength. Their actions underscore the truth that divine justice is not arbitrary. It is rooted in God's holiness, His righteousness, and His commitment to restoring order in the face of rebellion. This judgment of the Watchers also carries a deep spiritual message for humanity. The Watchers' fall began with their pride and disobedience, showing that even the most powerful beings in the universe are not exempt from God's laws. The film and the Book of Enoch serve as a reminder of the dangers of turning away from God's commandments, of attempting to elevate ourselves above His authority. The Watchers were not only punished for their rebellion, but for the profound consequences their actions had on humanity. They introduced chaos and violence into the world, and the birth of the Nephilim only amplified the destruction. God's judgment, therefore, was not only for their defiance, but for the havoc they wreaked on His creation. The Watchers' fate also points to the larger theme of spiritual warfare. In the Book of Enoch, their rebellion against God becomes the foundation for much of the chaos that will follow in the spiritual realm. Their actions disrupt the harmony between heaven and earth, unleashing forces of evil that will continue to trouble mankind throughout history. But the finality of their judgment points to the ultimate victory of good over evil. It reminds us that no matter how powerful the forces of darkness may seem, God's justice will always prevail. In the film, as in the scriptures, the binding of the Watchers serves as a powerful visual of this divine truth. The forces of evil may rise up, but they will never succeed against the might of God's will. Ultimately, the judgment of the Watchers is a warning and a promise. It is a warning to those who rebel against God's laws, to those who seek to corrupt and destroy His creation. It reminds us that there are consequences for disobedience, eternal consequences. But it is also a promise that no matter how chaotic the world may become, no matter how overwhelming evil may seem, God's justice will prevail. The Watcher's fate is sealed, but it is not the end of the story. The final victory belongs to God, and He will restore order, justice, and peace in His time. The judgment of the Watchers serves as both a solemn warning and a message of hope to all who choose to align themselves with God's will. Enoch's role in the Book of Enoch goes beyond merely being a witness to the chaos caused by the Watchers and the Nephilim. He serves as a vital figure in the spiritual narrative, a prophet chosen by God to reveal divine truths about the future. As the great-grandfather of Noah, Enoch was uniquely positioned to speak into the spiritual and moral decline of humanity. His journey through the heavens, where he is shown the fate of the wicked and the judgment of the Watchers, is not just a visionary experience, it is a divine calling to warn humanity about the consequences of turning away from God. Enoch's experience in the heavenly realms reveals the profound nature of his relationship with God. In Genesis 5, verse 24, it is stated, "And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him." This mysterious statement suggests that Enoch's life was one of exceptional righteousness and divine favor, so much so that he did not experience death in the conventional sense. Instead, God took him directly into His presence, sparing him from the corruption and violence that had overtaken the earth. Enoch's walk with God serves as a model for righteousness, showing that even in a time of great moral decay, it is possible to live a life that is pleasing to God. The film, The Book of Enoch, brings this aspect of Enoch's life to the forefront, emphasizing his unique connection with God and his role as a messenger of divine truth. In the film, we see Enoch not just as a passive observer of the events around him, but as an active participant in delivering God's judgment and guidance. His journey through the heavens is not just about witnessing the judgment of the Watchers, but about understanding the deeper spiritual truths that govern the cosmos. Enoch's vision serves as a warning to humanity about the destructive power of sin and the eternal consequences that follow. It is also a reminder that God's plan is always at work, even when evil seems to have the upper hand. One of the most significant aspects of Enoch's vision is his prophecy about the coming of the Lord to judge the wicked.
In Enoch 1, verse 9, it says, "And behold, he cometh with 10,000 of his saints, to execute judgment upon all, and to destroy all the ungodly, and to convict all flesh of all the works of their ungodliness, which they have ungodly committed, and of all the hard things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him." This prophecy, echoed in the New Testament by the Apostle Jude, speaks of the final judgment when God will come in glory to set all things right. It is a message of both warning and hope. Warning for those who continue in their rebellion, and hope for those who seek righteousness and justice. In the film, this prophecy is portrayed with dramatic intensity, showing the fiery judgment that awaits the wicked and the ultimate triumph of God's justice. The imagery is both terrifying and awe-inspiring, a visual representation of the cosmic struggle between good and evil. Yet, the film also highlights Enoch's role as a figure of hope, as he remains faithful to God and is entrusted with revealing the future victory of righteousness over wickedness. His legacy is not just about warning of judgment, it is about encouraging believers to live in a way that aligns with God's will, knowing that ultimate victory belongs to those who remain faithful. Enoch's legacy is also tied to the promise of salvation through Noah, his descendant. The flood, which God sends to cleanse the earth of the corruption caused by the Nephilim and the Watchers, serves as a prelude to the redemption of humanity through Noah. In the film, this connection is made clear as Enoch's visions of judgment and the coming of the Lord point forward to the hope of salvation that Noah's Ark represents. Just as Noah and his family were spared from the flood due to their righteousness, Enoch's message points to the hope that even in the midst of judgment, God's mercy and salvation are available to those who remain faithful. The legacy of Enoch's vision is one of righteousness, judgment, and hope. It is a call to believers to remain steadfast in their faith, to walk with God as Enoch did, and to trust that, despite the evil that may abound, God's ultimate plan will prevail. The film serves as a reminder that, just as Enoch saw the judgment of the Watchers and the coming of the Lord, so too must we live with an understanding of the spiritual realities that surround us. It calls us to live faithfully in a world that often seems to be spiraling into chaos, trusting that God's justice and mercy will ultimately triumph.
The film The Book of Enoch goes far beyond a mere cinematic retelling of an ancient text. It digs into the heart of spiritual warfare, cosmic justice, and the struggle between righteousness and evil. The story of the Watchers, their descent to earth, and their ultimate judgment serves as a warning not just about the consequences of defying God's law, but also about the eternal impact of human choices. What the film underscores is the ever-present reality of the spiritual forces at work in the world. These forces, good and evil, are not just confined to ancient history, but are at play in the lives of every person today. Through its dramatic visuals and powerful storytelling, the film compels us to reflect on the nature of our own choices and their spiritual consequences. One of the central messages in the film is the idea of spiritual accountability. The Watchers were angels entrusted with a divine purpose to watch over humanity, guide them, and ensure their well-being. Instead, they gave in to temptation, violated God's commandments, and sought to corrupt mankind. Their punishment, as depicted in the film, is a powerful reminder that no one, no matter their position, strength, or authority, is exempt from the consequences of disobedience. In the book and film, the Watchers' rebellion is not merely a moral misstep, it is an act of profound defiance that disrupts the natural order and leads to catastrophic consequences. This serves as a stark reminder that in the spiritual realm,
as in our lives, we are held accountable for our actions, and those who are entrusted with great power are held to an even greater standard. The film also explores the idea of spiritual warfare, a constant battle between the forces of good and evil that shapes not only the heavenly realms, but the very fabric of human existence. The Watcher's fall serves as a warning of the dangers of pride and unchecked rebellion against God. They thought they could operate outside of God's will, but their actions led to destruction, chaos, and corruption. This theme of spiritual rebellion is not confined to the ancient world. It's a recurring pattern that can be seen throughout human history, from the fall of Adam and Eve to the struggles believers face today. The film powerfully portrays the consequences of straying from God's plan, and it challenges us to consider how we too may be complicit in the ongoing spiritual battle by the choices we make. Another critical message in both the Book of Enoch and its film adaptation is the importance of spiritual vigilance. The Nephilim, born from the union of the Watchers and human women, symbolize not just physical giants, but the overwhelming presence of evil in the world. Their very existence represents the destructive impact of sin and disobedience. The film vividly illustrates the violence, chaos, and moral decay that followed the birth of these beings. But it also serves as a reminder that just as the Nephilim were destroyed, so too will the forces of darkness ultimately be judged. The judgment of the Watchers and the eventual destruction of the Nephilim point forward to the final judgment of all evil. This narrative echoes the biblical promise found in Revelation 20, verse 10, where it is written, "And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever." The film's depiction of these events emphasizes that evil, no matter how powerful or pervasive it may seem, will ultimately be defeated. In many ways, the Book of Enoch film acts as both a warning and an invitation. It warns of the dangers of pride, rebellion, and corruption, while also inviting us to reflect on our own lives. Are we walking in alignment with God's will, or are we allowing the same temptations that led the Watchers astray to take root in our own hearts? It's an invitation to examine our own hearts, to confront the darkness within, and to choose to walk in the light of God's truth. The film, like the Book of Enoch, challenges viewers to consider the weight of their choices and the spiritual consequences of every decision, whether large or small. Ultimately, the message of the film is one of hope. While the Watchers were punished for their rebellion and the Nephilim were destroyed for their corruption, God's plan for redemption is still unfolding. Through Enoch, God reveals that judgment and mercy go hand in hand. God is just, and he will punish the wicked, but he also provides a way for the righteous to be saved. The message of the Book of Enoch is not merely about the wrath of God, but about the opportunity for redemption, the importance of faith, and the need to walk faithfully with God, as Enoch did. The film invites us into that same faith journey, challenging us to live with the awareness that our actions, no matter how hidden or small, have spiritual significance in the ongoing battle between good and evil. The release of the Book of Enoch film was nothing short of groundbreaking. It was an adaptation of a text that, for centuries, was largely relegated to the realm of apocryphal literature, often ignored or misunderstood by mainstream Christianity. Yet, when the film was released, it brought the ancient story of the Watchers, the Nephilim, and Enoch's prophetic visions to life in vivid, powerful detail. For many viewers, this was the first time they encountered the darker, more complex elements of the spiritual realm in such a direct and visually stunning way. The shock wasn't just in the storytelling, it was in the profound spiritual truths the film unearthed, offering a fresh perspective on the battle between good and evil, divine judgment, and the cosmic scale of spiritual warfare. One of the most significant reasons the film shocked audiences was because it didn't shy away from the uncomfortable and controversial aspects of the story. The Watchers, angels who not only disobey God's command but also corrupted humanity, are portrayed in a complex light. They are shown as beings of immense beauty and power, yet their fall from grace is depicted as both tragic and horrifying. This portrayal challenges the more sanitized, traditional views of angels and demons, revealing that even celestial beings can fall prey to temptation, pride, and rebellion. The film made these celestial beings more relatable and humanized them in a way that had never been done before. This added a layer of complexity to the narrative, forcing viewers to grapple with the idea that even the most powerful and majestic beings can be corrupted, and that spiritual battles have real consequences. The portrayal of the Nephilim also shocked viewers. In the Bible, they are often presented as a mysterious and frightening presence, giants born of fallen angels and human women. The film took this ambiguity and amplified it, bringing to life monstrous beings who were not just physically imposing, but morally and spiritually corrupt. The Nephilim were shown as tyrants who spread violence and chaos, their power and evil influence terrifyingly real. The film's depiction of these beings stirred up intense emotions, forcing viewers to confront the implications of their actions, not only in the context of the ancient world, but in how they relate to the world today. The Nephilim symbolize the unchecked growth of evil, and their depiction as dark giants towering over humanity was a haunting reminder of the power of sin and corruption. Another element that shocked audiences was the dramatic depiction of divine judgment. The Book of Enoch is clear about the consequences of sin, both for humanity and for the angels who chose to rebel. The punishment of the Watchers is both severe and final. In the film, their binding in the depths of the earth, awaiting eternal punishment, was depicted with chilling intensity. This stark visual portrayal of divine justice left a lasting impression, reminding viewers of the seriousness of rebellion against God's will. The film made it clear that God's judgment is not a distant or abstract concept, but a powerful and inescapable force. It is a reminder that no matter how much the forces of evil may seem to be winning in the world today, there is a reckoning coming. The spiritual battle is not over, and God will one day bring all things into judgment. The film also explored the theme of spiritual rebellion and its consequences, challenging the audience to reflect on their own lives. By showing how the Watchers' disobedience led to the corruption of humanity, the film drew a direct line between their fall and the choices individuals make in their own lives. It raised questions about the nature of temptation, the struggle between good and evil, and the ways in which humans align themselves with divine or demonic forces. It asked viewers to consider their own moral choices and the impact those choices have on the world around them. The story of the Watchers is a reminder that rebellion against God's order has consequences, not just for the individual, but for all of creation. In many ways, the film The Book of Enoch was a wake-up call. It reintroduced an ancient story to a modern world that often ignores or dismisses the deeper spiritual battles at play. It took an apocryphal text that many had either forgotten or never known and made it relevant again, compelling people to examine the spiritual realities around them. It was a powerful reminder that the forces of evil are active and at work in the world, but also that God's justice and mercy are ever present. The film, with its dramatic portrayal of judgment and redemption, shocked viewers into considering the deeper implications of their actions, their faith, and their relationship with the divine. The film also sparked conversations within the Christian community, reigniting interest in the Book of Enoch and its messages. While it challenged some traditional interpretations, it also opened the door for a broader discussion about the nature of angels, demons, and spiritual warfare. Some viewers were shocked by the darker elements of the story, while others were captivated by the opportunity to explore a narrative that had been largely ignored. For many, it served as an introduction to the apocryphal texts and provided a new perspective on the unseen realm that shapes the physical world. In the end, the film The Book of Enoch shocked the world because it didn't just entertain, it invited viewers to reflect on the nature of good, evil, and divine judgment. It reminded us that we are all part of a much larger story, one that transcends time, and that our choices have eternal consequences. Through its bold portrayal of the Watchers, the Nephilim, and the judgment that followed, it reminded us that the battle between good and evil is not a distant tale from the past, but a present reality that we must all confront.